Before you move away, before you convince yourself this is just another video, listen carefully. Because what you are feeling right now is not random. That pause, that slight hesitation, that strange curiosity pulling you in, it is the exact moment most people ignore and regret later. This message is not here to entertain you. It is here to interrupt your pattern, break your cycle, and expose something you've been living inside without even realizing it. And if you leave now, you will go back to the same loop, scrolling, delaying, repeating the same day, the same habits, the same emptiness. But if you stay, something shifts. Not because magic happens, but because awareness finally replaces blindness. And that is where change begins. This is not about fear, it is about clarity. You are not stuck because you lack ability. You are stuck because your attention is being taken from you every single day in small, invisible ways. And the most dangerous trap is not failure. It is distraction that feels harmless. You think you are in control, but your time is being shaped by impulses, not intention. And deep down, you already know it. Now listen closely, because this message is only for the ones who are ready to wake up. Not later, not tomorrow, right now. And if you stay until the end, you will understand something most people never realize. Your life is not changing because your focus is leaking. The most dangerous trap is not failure, it is invisible distraction that steals your time silently, because unlike obvious problems that hit you with pain, warning signs, or immediate consequences, distraction works in a way that feels harmless, even comforting, while it slowly rewires your habits, your focus, and your perception of time. It does not force you into loss, it gently invites you into delay. It begins with a simple moment, just a few seconds of checking your phone, just one short video, just a quick scroll to relax. But those small moments are never as small as they seem. They stack together quietly, forming hours that disappear without resistance. And the most alarming part is that you don't even feel it happening. There is no alarm, no visible damage, no immediate consequence that forces you to stop. Instead, there is only the illusion of control, the belief that you can stop any time, that you are simply taking a break, that you are still in charge of your time, when in reality, your attention is being pulled away from what actually matters. This trap is powerful because it doesn't look like a trap at all. It looks like normal life. Everyone around you is doing the same thing, so it feels acceptable, even expected. But what is common is not always what is right for your growth. While your mind is entertained, your goals are waiting. While your eyes are consuming endless content, your potential is sitting unused. And slowly, without noticing, your focus weakens. Tasks that once felt easy now feel heavy. Goals that once felt exciting now feel distant, and you begin to wonder why you are not progressing, not realizing that progress requires attention that is no longer fully yours. The real danger is not that distraction destroys you instantly, but that it delays you gradually until you no longer recognize how far you've drifted from the life you intended to build. And by the time you realize it, the lost time cannot be recovered, only remembered with regret that you were never meant to live in the loop you accepted without question. Because every moment you give to distraction is a moment taken from the life you could have created. And that is how the trap quietly wins without ever needing to fight. Awareness without action keeps you stuck in a deeper level of the same problem. Because the moment you become aware that something is wrong, but still choose not to change it, you enter a cycle that is even more dangerous than ignorance. Ignorance, at least, has no understanding of the problem, but awareness creates a conflict inside you. You see what needs to be done, you feel the urgency, you recognize the loss, yet you continue repeating the same behavior. That internal contradiction slowly builds frustration, not progress. You begin to judge yourself for what you are not doing, while still failing to do it. And over time, this creates a heavier burden than the problem itself, because now you are not only dealing with distraction, you are also dealing with self-awareness that is not being transformed into action. This is where most people get trapped mentally. They think understanding their situation is enough to change it. They watch motivational content, they read advice, they feel inspired for a short moment, and they believe something has shifted. But inspiration without execution fades quickly, and when nothing changes in behavior, the mind starts to lose trust in itself. You begin to say things like, "I know what to do, I just don't do it." And that sentence is more powerful than it seems, because it becomes an identity. It turns into a pattern of thinking that normalizes inaction, making it easier to delay again and again. The deeper issue is that awareness without action creates emotional weight without progress. You feel the pressure of knowing better, but you don't experience the relief of doing better. So instead of growth, you get internal tension. Instead of clarity, you get confusion mixed with guilt. And that combination slowly drains motivation, because the mind starts associating awareness with discomfort rather than empowerment. This is why many people feel stuck, even when they know everything, because knowing is not the same as changing. Real transformation begins when awareness is immediately followed by action, even in the smallest form. The moment you act on what you know, you break the cycle of internal conflict and replace it with momentum. But when awareness stays unused, it becomes a reminder of potential rather than progress, and that is what keeps you locked in a deeper version of the same struggle, where you are fully aware of the path forward, but still standing still at the same point, watching time pass while change remains uncreated. Every small delay today becomes a major regret in your future if repeated, because life does not change through one single decision. It changes through patterns, and patterns are built from what you consistently allow yourself to postpone. A single delay feels harmless in the moment. You tell yourself it's just today, just this once, just a quick break before you start. But the mind is extremely adaptable, and what you repeat once becomes easier to repeat again. And what becomes easy eventually becomes automatic. That is how delay stops being a choice and starts becoming a habit. At first, postponing feels like relief. You avoid effort, you avoid discomfort, and you convince yourself you'll do it later when you feel more ready. But later rarely arrives with better conditions. It arrives with more excuses, more distractions, and more resistance. And slowly, what you were supposed to do today gets pushed into tomorrow, and tomorrow becomes a collection of unfinished intentions that grow heavier over time. Not because the task changed, but because your distance from it increased. The dangerous part is that delay does not just affect your schedule, it affects your identity. Every time you choose to postpone something important, you reinforce a subtle belief that you are someone who does things later, not now. And identity is shaped quietly through repetition. You don't suddenly become disciplined or undisciplined. You become what you repeatedly practice. So when delay becomes your default response, your mind starts to trust hesitation more than action. Over time, this creates a gap between who you could have become and who you are becoming. And that gap doesn't close on its own, it expands. Because opportunities don't wait for readiness, they move forward with or without you. And while you are delaying small actions today, the cost is not visible immediately, but it compounds silently. One missed effort turns into a missed skill. One missed day turns into lost momentum. One repeated excuse turns into a lifestyle of postponement. Eventually, what you once planned to start easily becomes something you fear starting at all, not because it is impossible, but because it has been delayed so many times that it now feels heavier than it actually is. And that is how small delays transform into future regret, not through one big failure, but through countless small decisions that seemed insignificant in the moment, but defined everything in the long run. Discipline is not motivation. It is the decision to act when your mind resists, because motivation is emotional and unstable, while discipline is behavioral and consistent. Motivation can inspire you in one moment and disappear in the next, but discipline is what carries you forward when inspiration is gone, when energy is low, and when excuses feel stronger than effort. This is where most people misunderstand their own progress. They wait to feel ready before they act. But readiness is not a feeling. It is a result of repeated action. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you are training your mind to respond differently. At first, it feels uncomfortable because you are breaking a pattern that your brain has learned to enjoy. The mind naturally prefers what is easy, what is familiar, what gives instant relief. So when you choose to focus instead of distract yourself, or to work instead of delay, you create internal resistance. That resistance is not a sign that you are doing something wrong. It is a sign that you are changing something deeply ingrained. And change always feels difficult in the beginning. But discipline is built in those exact moments of resistance. It is not created when everything feels perfect. It is created when nothing feels easy, and you still choose to act. That is the real separation between intention and transformation. Many people intend to improve their lives, but only a few are willing to act when it is inconvenient, and over time, that small difference becomes a massive gap in results. What makes discipline powerful is that it removes decision fatigue. Instead of constantly negotiating with yourself, should I do this now or later, you start acting automatically based on your standards, not your feelings. And once that shift happens, progress becomes less dependent on mood and more dependent on identity. You stop being someone who tries to be disciplined and start becoming someone who simply is disciplined. But this process requires repetition. One disciplined action does not change your life, but repeated disciplined actions reshape your entire direction. Every time you choose effort over ease, you strengthen control over your impulses. And every time you give in to resistance, you reinforce the habit of delay. This is why discipline is not a one-time decision. It is a daily practice of choosing what matters over what feels easy in the moment. And eventually, when discipline becomes your default response, you stop living reactively and start living intentionally, no longer waiting for motivation to push you, but relying on your own commitment to carry you forward, even when everything inside you wants to stop. You were created for purpose, not passive consumption. Because your life was never meant to be reduced to endless observation of other people's experiences while your own remains unbuilt. Passive consumption feels harmless at first. It gives comfort, entertainment, and an escape from pressure. But over time it slowly replaces action. Instead of creating, you consume. Instead of building, you watch. Instead of living intentionally, you drift through content that was designed to hold your attention but never guide your direction. The danger is subtle because passive consumption does not demand effort from you. It asks nothing, challenges nothing, and temporarily relieves everything. But what it removes from you is far more important. It takes away your time, your focus, and your drive to engage with your own life. The more you consume without creating, the more your mind becomes accustomed to receiving instead of producing. And when the mind gets used to receiving, it begins to resist effort. Tasks feel heavier, starting feels harder, and thinking deeply feels uncomfortable compared to the ease of endless scrolling. Purpose, however, requires participation. It cannot be discovered while you are constantly distracted by everything outside of you. It reveals itself in moments of effort, in moments of creation, in moments where you choose to engage instead of escape. Every time you step away from passive consumption and direct your energy into something meaningful, even something small, you begin to reconnect with your potential. Because purpose is not hidden in entertainment, it is revealed through action. What makes passive consumption even more dangerous is that it feels like you are doing something with your time, when in reality, you are only filling it. Time is not meant to be filled. It is meant to be used intentionally. And when it is not directed, it gets absorbed by whatever is easiest, not what is most important. That is how days pass without progress, and how weeks turn into cycles of repetition with no real growth. But the moment you shift from consuming to creating, even slightly, something changes internally. You start noticing your thoughts again. You start questioning your habits. You begin to feel the difference between being occupied and being productive. And slowly, your attention starts returning to you instead of constantly being pulled away. Because at the core, you were never meant to just observe life. You were meant to shape it. And every moment you choose creation over consumption is a step back toward the purpose that has been waiting for your attention all along. Not in what you watch, but in what you choose to build with your own hands and your own focus. The moment you take back your focus, your entire direction in life begins to shift. Because focus is not just attention, it is control. Where your focus goes, your energy follows. And where your energy goes, your life begins to take shape. Most people don't realize they are not stuck because they lack ability, but because their focus is constantly being pulled in multiple directions. Every distraction fragments your attention, and a fragmented mind cannot build anything strong, consistent, or meaningful. It can only react, not create. Taking back your focus does not mean eliminating distractions completely from the world. It means deciding what deserves your attention and what does not. The world will always offer noise, entertainment, and endless information, but not everything that captures your attention deserves your energy. The moment you begin to choose consciously instead of reacting automatically, you regain power over your direction. And that power is what separates a life of drift from a life of purpose. At first, reclaiming focus feels difficult because your mind is used to instant stimulation. It resists silence, it resists effort, it resists deep thinking. But that resistance is temporary. It fades every time you choose to stay present instead of escaping into distraction. Every focused moment strengthens your mental control, just like every distraction weakens it. And over time, these small choices reshape your entire mental structure. What begins as a simple decision to focus for a few minutes eventually becomes a way of living. You start noticing more. You think deeper. You act with intention instead of impulse. And slowly, the chaos that once controlled your time starts losing its influence over you. You no longer feel constantly pulled in different directions because you have trained your mind to return to what matters. This is where real transformation begins, not in sudden change, but in consistent focus. Because focus compounds just like distraction does. One moment of attention leads to another, and another, until momentum builds. And once momentum builds, progress becomes natural instead of forced. You are no longer fighting yourself to stay on track, you are simply aligned with it. And when that alignment happens, you begin to see something powerful. You are never lacking potential, you are simply leaking focus. The moment you stop that leak, everything changes. Your clarity returns, your discipline strengthens, your direction becomes visible again. Not because your life suddenly became easier, but because you finally started giving your attention to the things that actually build it. And in the end, the truth is simple. Whoever controls your focus controls your future. But the moment you take it back, you take your future back with it. And that is where everything begins to change. In the end, everything you have heard comes down to one simple truth. Your life is not being shaped by one big moment, but by the small moments you keep repeating every single day. The distractions you allow, the delays you accept, the habits you ignore, and the focus you lose are not random events. They are building a direction. And that direction either leads you closer to your purpose or further away from it. You now understand the trap is not loud or obvious. It does not announce itself as destruction. It appears as comfort, as just 5 more minutes, as I'll do it later, as harmless distraction that slowly turns into a lifestyle. But what feels harmless in the moment becomes powerful in repetition, and that repetition quietly decides whether you grow or stay stuck. But you are also aware now of something more important. You are not powerless in this. You never were. The same attention that has been pulled away from you can be taken back. The same time that has been wasted can be redirected. The same mind that has been distracted can be trained to focus again. Nothing about your situation is permanent unless you continue repeating it. This is the turning point where awareness must become action. Because understanding the problem without changing your behavior only deepens the frustration. But when you decide, even in a small way, to act differently, to focus instead of scroll, to start instead of delay, to build instead of consume, you begin to break the cycle that has been controlling you. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need the perfect moment. You need a decision. A decision to stop letting distraction lead your life and start letting discipline define it. Because every focused moment you create from now on is not just progress, it is a reclaiming of your future. So take this seriously, not as inspiration, but as responsibility, because your time will pass either way. The only question is whether it passes with purpose or regret. And as this message ends, understand this clearly. You don't need more time. You need more control over the time you already have. Take it back, use it wisely, and let your actions prove that you were never meant to stay stuck in the trap, but to rise above it and finally live the life you have been postponing.